Hey, Jonah. I did have a good day. Hopefully you had one too. I've been reading Scamming Closet's playbook. It's really easy. Not even gonna lie. Hey, Fair. Right? Those cupcakes look good spread. I think she's got them posted, Allie. Hey, Artie. Okay, we are going to get started with a little introduction, once again, about Scammy Claus. We know her as Scammy Claus. No matter how much she tries to change her name, she'll always be the same raggedy mad dog that she started TikTok being. The same raggedy mad dog that defended Dennis. The day Scammy Claus changes is the day she gets a face tat. Maybe she can be the one if she tattoos her whole fucking head. I don't know. I gotta remind everybody that when you're in your late 50s, it's a common transition zone socially. All of her relationships changed, and everybody left her behind, including her wife in the spare bedroom. If you look at research on older adults in their late 50s, they emphasize on needing a connection to avoid loneliness. The loneliness that's felt when your wife sleeps in the next bedroom. TikTok to Scammy Claus functions like an instant new identity. That's why she changed her name so much. When one identity isn't working, when she can't be the scam busting Scammy Claus, she'll try to be the old lady Grammy Claus, and when that don't work, she'll be, the bitter old petty Claus. And when that doesn't work, she'll go back to being Scammy Claus because, all those were just an act anyways, and so is the Scammy Claus character. No more intimacy means I'm going to spend my time on TikTok following a man around for 2 years and defending pedophiles. That's what Scammy Claus is. That's the legacy that she leaves behind. She is emotionally married to me being her villain. She can't stop posting about me. She can't stop watching me. She can't stop obsessing over me. It's not optional for her anymore. I am like a rug to her. She has used me so much, she has become addicted to me. So much that she needs to escalate stories and escalate conflicts to keep her identity of me being her villain alive. She treats her followers as a support system and as a jury. She has developed a parasocial relationship with me. One that I am not a willing participant of. She wants more from me than I will ever give her. Damn. TikTok is structurally built for parasocial bonds. The viewers can feel like they know the creator. She feels like she knows me. Her social and parasocial behavior does not interact well with her in-life well-being, her mental health in life, her relationships in life, or what she used to do in life. She has thrown all of that life away to have a parasocial relationship and follow a stick figure around on the internet for 2+ years, never winning a single time. If she's not posting dramatic or controversial content about me or about anyone that's around me, she has no way to regulate her emotions because that's how she chooses to do it. I have become the function that she needs, the person that she needs to be able to regulate all of her emotions. All of the negative things that's happened to her in her life, she will project onto me. And she would try to take it out on me. And then she'll use her followers to agree with her. Because it's not like she cherry picks the smartest ones. She's got an incentive with her platform. She uses accelerants like outrage, her moral certainty, where she's the victim and the hero. The us versus them. Her daily posting and daily updates about me. She's an elder TikTok user. It's very common for them to become obsessed with a younger male on TikTok that they envy, that they wish they could be, knowing that she is just pretending to be me. And she is pretending that I am her. And all the shit that she says about me is really stuff that she cannot say to herself. The validation that she gets from her audience, well, it would be hate from her audience if they really knew it was her. It makes her feel powerful and safe, knowing that she can be a stand-up individual or pretend to be a stand-up individual like myself. Knowing that she doesn't have to look at her audience and say, my name is Amy Grasso and I'm a failure in life. We're going to get to her playbook. It's actually her favorite book. Written by Helen Keller. The coolest part about a book written by Helen Keller is you can just look at the squiggles and say whatever you want. Not like anybody can read it. This book is called Scamming Clause's Playbook by Helen Keller. Page 1. My God, this is so offensive in many ways, but it's so funny too. She says he never shows receipts. And then she uses those two to reframe it on other things that I've said. Like, well, I don't need to see receipts when this argument's really about feelings. Like between Jen and Justina. You don't need receipts when it's really about feelings. Get that shit out the way. Receipts just drag shit out. It's not random behavior. It's a rhetorical strategy. She tries to invert the narrative, because she has done. Narrative inversion is when someone takes a trait that I am known for, reverses it, and repeats the reversal until it feels true to anybody who's in her audience. And they're not present for the full history, so they wouldn't know any better. I am known for transparency, receipts, documentation, and over-explaining. So her only viable attack is to invert that identity. Hey, Trouble. Now, if I'm lying about any of that, anybody can feel free to take a box and explain why I'm not transparent, why I don't show receipts, where I don't show them, where I don't document, and where I don't over-explain things. At any point in time, even if you're not from here, you could be a straight-up hater as long as you ain't like that two-tongue bitch 13. She can kick rocks. She can also lick rocks with her both sides of her tongue. So when someone attacks what you are known for, it's never about facts. It's about neutralizing trust. Then she does credibility laundering. She's attempting to launder her own credibility through my reputation. And here's how that works. If I am framed as dishonest, then her statements don't need proof. And my receipts can be pre-dismissed as manipulative, selective, or too much. This allows her to avoid producing her own evidence, preemptively poison the well against anything that I present. And it shifts the burden of proof permanently onto me. It's not accidental. It's necessary for her narrative to survive. So, when she said, remember guys, he says he doesn't need receipts, she left out a key detail. And that was for small issues. Because I tell people that I don't need receipts for small issues because it speeds up the conversation. Not every disagreement needs to be litigated. And some things come down to feelings, not facts. Morning. She removes the context and the scale and reframes it as, I don't believe in receipts. I avoid accountability. And I only show proof when it benefits me. That is a total and complete error on her part, and she's misinforming her audience on purpose. I have not read any barely done the messages. I still got to answer spread those messages. I feel bad for ignoring her. I feel bad for ignoring everybody, but I've been a little busy today. But I will get to them. Of course, I always do, eventually. So, as I can distinguish between minor personal disagreements and serious claims, she collapses everything into one category, so nuance disappears. There's no difference to her between somebody getting their feelings hurt and somebody lying for a year and a half plus on reasons why they're following me around. Because nuance kills smear narrative. Hey, Reds. So, as she knows, TikTok rewards moral certainty over accuracy. People on TikTok prefer short claims, absolutes, repetition, and emotional conviction. So it comes down to he lies about everything, performs better than here's a nuanced disagreement about boundaries, context, and receipts. She simplifies it, not because it's true, but because it's efficient for the audience that she's curated. She has age-based and career-based authority amplification. She was a former educator. She waves that around right in front of the pedophiles she defends. She's in her late 50s, so she, benefits from an automatic perceived maturity. People think, why would an older woman lie? And, she is motherly to people who have genuinely no idea what a mother is, because that woman is evil as shit. And that's why she can say, everybody knows. That's why she can say that I never show receipts. And she'll never say, I'm calling out her behavior, because she'll always reframe her behavior as the righteous, moral thing. And she'll do it without backing it up with anything other than her words that mean nothing. Yes, Miss Justice, but you're not on here acting a whole damn fool like Scammy Claus and Scam Slam and many others. You could be. I don't know. But from what I've seen, you haven't been. I didn't even know who you were, because I don't pay attention to her followers or mods or anybody that's over there. Except for that one bitch, Pennies from Heaven. You got your Facebook, bitch. Because you're weird as fuck. You got always be kind in your profile, but then you got I need Xanax in your post. Kind of weird. She tries to create an emotional destabilization with it. She thinks I'm forced to defend what was never in question to overproven. And then she tries to frame me as defensive for responding. She thinks it gives her control in the pacing, control of the narrative, and control of the audience perception. She's trying to make a power move. She's not having a misunderstanding. That's why I don't defend anything that she says, because it's never in question. I overprove anyways. Her whole I don't know and defendant T's husband, that was her trying to force everybody to overprove. And then she tried to say everybody was defensive. Why it works on some people? It'll work on new viewers without context until they get context. It'll work on people who distrust too much documentation and audience that are primed for villain, hero scenarios. It fails with long-term observers, people who have clear tells, even though the information was already shared over and over and over. So then she shifts the blame to the messenger, the person who presented the evidence. Except the person that presented the evidence wasn't the person that is her villain, so she had to lie and say, I presented the evidence. Directly sent to her. Many of you directly sent that paperwork to her each time. And notice how she said, I did it. She said, I put it out there. She had to say that. Because, well, because she can't do that to two people at once. She can only do it to one. She can say certain things like, oh, well, Jim and I just did that to get at T because they were beefing. Not at all. But she can't directly try to discredit Gemini in the way she tries to discredit me because she doesn't have enough energy to do that. And her people won't believe that she's the only honest person on TikTok because she's actually the most dishonest person on TikTok, sitting right there along with Scam Slam. Why do people use strategic ignorance on TikTok? Because TikTok rewards confidence over accuracy, repetition over correction, and to motivate someone to keep a morally or emotionally charged position. Avoid admitting they were wrong, something she hates to do, and continue benefiting from engagement. Then they can escape accountability without retracting anything. It's a way to say, I can hold any position I want, and facts don't get to interfere. Documentation matters in this context. When documentation exists and is ignored, the issue is no longer a difference of opinion. Facts don't require agreement to remain facts. Choosing not to engage with evidence is not neutrality. It's a decision. A decision to prioritize narrative over reality. There's a key distinction many people miss. And that is the difference between not knowing yet and refusing to know once shown. Strategic ignorance is refusing to know once you're shown. Accusations of lying always follow. When someone, anyone, relies on strategic ignorance, evidence becomes a threat. One of the most common defenses to attack the credibility of a person presenting facts is they lie. They exaggerate. You can't trust their receipts. They had something against that person. If trust in the messenger collapses, the evidence doesn't need to be addressed. Why it's important to recognize this pattern? Because when you let strategic ignorance go unchecked, it normalizes misinformation, minimizes documented harm, rewards being contradicted morally, and it teaches audience that evidence is optional. When people recognize the pattern, it helps slow down emotionally charged narratives. It makes you ask better questions. And you can distinguish disagreement from denial much easier. You don't have to argue endlessly with someone using strategic ignorance. The pattern itself is the explanation. When evidence is shown, ignored, and then denied, that tells you everything you need to know about what they think of the situation and the person that they are. Having a disagreement is just fine. But when you repeatedly defend positions after documented evidence has been shown, then later you claim ignorance on that stance because you did not know about the information. It isn't a difference of opinion. It is a refusal to engage with the facts. When public records and court paperwork are presented and explained, choosing not to acknowledge them doesn't make them disappear, and it doesn't make them not facts. Accusing the person who you claim provided the documentation of lying is a common way to avoid accountability without addressing the evidence itself. Personally, I'm not interested in engaging in false narratives, as Scammy Claus likes to put out. I'm interested in reality. And reality doesn't change just because someone decides not to look at it. Oh, she's gonna trip the fuck out tomorrow about this live, by the way. She's probably listening right now. Notating everything she can say down, like, oh, I don't do that. Oh, he caught me. Time to go a different route. It's okay, there's 100 pages in this Helen Keller book, Scammy Claus. Pick one, say whatever you want. Every time your behavior would be called out. Ever notice how she surrounds herself with the worst people? Time after time after time. Person after person after person. Every single time. Every single person gets called out for behavior that she has at one point in time have stood against. When she is known and her people around her are known to look into everybody and to look up everybody. And then she wants to say, well, I didn't know. Again, strategic ignorance. But she repeatedly surrounds herself with people who turn out to have serious behavioral issues. And those issues are the same things that she claims to stand against. It stops being random. It stops being a coincidence pretty quickly. One isolated incident can reasonably be explained by bad judgment. I have had a couple myself. 2 or 3 can be explained by poor boundaries. Granted, I admittedly have poor boundaries, but constant repetition over time points to a structural problem and how that person evaluates others. Patterns matter more than individual explanations. Her saying, "I don't know," loses credibility over time. Claiming ignorance once is plausible, claiming ignorance every time is not, especially when all of the following statements are true at the same time. Scammy Claus publicly represents herself as someone who researches people and associates herself with people who publicly represent themselves as people who research people and are known for doing it. They encourage others to look into individuals. They position themselves as morally vigilant. They actively insert themselves into conflicts involving accountability. When a person with those traits repeatedly claim that they don't know, they could be saying one of 3 things. They only selectively researched what they saw fit their narrative. Or they chose to not look once the information became inconvenient. Or they are using ignorance as a defense to avoid accountability. None of those explanations support credibility. The same type of people keep showing up around her because she is someone who constantly attracts and tolerates the worst behavior because that's what she puts out there. They have these traits. They have low enforcement of boundaries on issues that they've stood against when it fits their narrative. They have a high tolerance for dysfunction as long as loyalty is maintained and it's aimed at who they see as the villain. They have a tendency to excuse bad behavior until public exposure makes it impossible. They prioritize alignment and opposition over ethics. Scammy Claus has created an environment where problematic individuals feel safe and not challenged. Healthy people leave these environments early. Unhealthy people stay and multiply. Scammy Claus uses moral positioning without moral application. And that's one of the biggest red flags. She has strong moral language when criticizing anyone else, but soft excuses, minimization, or claims of ignorance when her insiders are exposed. This shows that the stated values are performative, not operational. If the values were real, they would be applied consistently. Evidence would be acknowledged regardless of convenience. Exposure would lead to distance, not denial. When that doesn't happen, the values are being used as social tools, not ethical guides. Ignorance becomes her default defense. Because ignorance is a uniquely useful shield for her. Because it avoids admitting poor judgment. It avoids admitting that she's complacent in the behavior. And it avoids confronting why the pattern keeps repeating. It also shifts focus away from the real question. Why does this keep happening around you? That question is far more threatening than any single exposure. She plays a role of selective accountability. Her pattern also relies on that same selective accountability. People who are considered outsiders are held to impossibly high standards. Insiders are granted endless benefit of the doubt arguments. Over time, it teaches people that watch that her morality is flexible. Evidence only matters to her when it targets the right people. And loyalty matters more than conduct. And that's how her environment became saturated with bad actors. When Scammy Claus claims to research people, when she claims strong moral positions, when she repeatedly associates herself with individuals who are later exposed for the same behavior that she has condoned at one point in time, and she always responds with, "I didn't know." The issue is no longer information. It is willful blindness, selective application of values, and strategic ignorance, all of which function to protect the person's narrative, not the community. You don't need to accuse intent to recognize the pattern. The repetition explains itself, and she has repeated all of these behaviors over and over and over. Right, Shady? I'm going to do one more part and then take a small and then pick it back up. I'm not going to end the live, but take a little break, take a little breather, give Scammy Claus time to get the saliva back in her mouth so she can spit at the next part. Yeah, I can. So here's what constant deflection actually is and why she uses it. Deflection is a communication strategy used to avoid addressing a specific issue by redirecting attention elsewhere. When it happens occasionally, it can be normal stress behavior. When it happens constantly, it becomes a control tactic. Constant deflection is not about misunderstanding the question. It's about refusing to stay on it. Scammy Claus is all about deflection. And here's how it shows up in practice with her. There's a clear concern or a documented issue is raised. It may involve evidence, receipts, or direct question about behavior or associations. She does not address the substance. Instead of responding to the facts, she pivots. The pivot takes a predictable form, such as attacking someone's credibility, saying, "You lie about everything." Reframing the issue as a personality flaw, saying, "You're obsessed, you're a stalker, you're dramatic." Changing the topic to someone else's behavior, claiming ignorance after engagement has already occurred, moralizing instead of answering. The original issue remains untouched. Why is it effective? Well, deflection works especially well on short-form platforms such as TikTok because the audience have limited attention spans. Emotional tone often matters more than factual response. Many viewers will not rewind, check timelines, or verify documentation. A confident deflection feels like an answer, even when it isn't one. This allows someone to appear responsive while actually avoiding accountability. The role of repetition in Scammy Claus's identity. You can tell a lot when someone repeats the same false claims over and over and over. When someone deflects once, it may be stress. When they deflect every time, a similar issue arises. It's their strategy. Over time, the deflection itself becomes predictable. The same phrases, the same pivots, the same accusations, the same claims of ignorance. Consistency and avoidance is not accidental. And it often turns into accusations on me, even when I didn't have anything to do with that particular thing. When she sees that deflection alone isn't enough, she escalates it into counter accusations, accusing me of lying, not showing receipts, or having bad intentions. Serves her two purposes. It shifts the conversation away from the original issue, and it attempts to force me into defense mode, which, if you all know me, I'm never in defense mode. She thinks once I'm defending myself, the original question has been effectively buried. It's not a resolution, it's a displacement. Her ignorance is a form of deflection. Claiming I don't know after evidence has been presented is not a lack of information, it's a refusal to integrate it into her narrative. Because factual information does not fit in her narrative. Ignorance claims function as deflection because they shut down further questioning. They avoid moral evaluation. And they try to reset the narrative without correction. It allows the person to move forward unchanged, regardless of what was shown. There's a deeper function to constant deflection. At its core, it protects self-image, social standing, audience trust, and narrative control. Engaging honestly with evidence would require admitting poor judgment, reassessing alliances, or changing behavior. Deflection avoids all three of those. Patterns matter more than explanations. Anyone can deflect once. Anyone can claim ignorance once. But when every confrontation follows the same arc, the same pivot, the same minimizing, the same accusations, the same denials, the explanation is no longer situational. The pattern becomes the explanation. Deflection is not an answer. Deflection is a refusal to answer. When someone constantly redirects instead of responding, the silence around the actual issue is intentional, even if the redirection is loud. You don't need to argue with deflection. You only need to recognize it. Okay, small break, a little breather. When I start back up, I'm going to touch on the video she made about Monster. Why she made it, what her little thought process was behind it, and what she really attempted to do. And the fact that she knew what she was doing the whole time. This is why I don't care what Scammy Plus says either. Like, for the very short time that I was listening to whatever she was spewing out there in Mallory's, when she was playing it, I don't let it bother me, because she's just gaslighting everybody. So that's what she tries to do. The people that follow her and the people that listen to that, she can have them. I would rather have people who think for themselves and do independent research and who tell me to fuck off when I do some fuck shit. It is what it is. If you listen to, I don't know, an hour of Scamming Classes Live, any of them, just pick one. You'll see that the contradictions and the dishonesty is loud as fuck. I truly believe that she thinks she's smarter than everybody. Right, investigator. You all do say it nicer than that. Yeah, she came. She came for you about a joke, and was a dick about it. Yeah, she really does. Like, it's really weird too, because like I don't think I'm smarter than anybody, but I actually think a lot of people are way smarter than me. But I know Scamming Claus is smarter than me in parts. Like, she's got her strengths, but it ain't manipulation, you fucker. Because I can see that shit. Self-righteous is all fake. Her whole personality is fake. When I said that she fucks with poor people because she's insecure about how close she is to poverty, that was very true. That's why she brushed her hair and staged a living space and went live with her camera and a filter on to be like, "Hey guys, look, I'm really not as bad off as he said I was," when she is. When she downs somebody on food stamps, she's just insecure about how close she is to getting them. Ain't nothing to be ashamed of. She's insecure about the legacy that she could never live up to with her father. And she sees that in me. Because just like her father, she can never live up to mine. Because like her father, I am who I am. I move how I move, unashamed. Where she is very ashamed of how she moves, because she knows she's not moving in the right direction and in the right way. She sees her failure to live up to her father's legacy, and she tries to take that out on me, thinking in some way, if she can tear me down, well, she's beat her father's legacy. I'm glad she sees me as such a person. But I ain't your daddy, Scamming Claus. A little too young for that. But I appreciate that you recognize what I do, Scamming Claus, as something that you could never live up to. From the transparency to the automatically admitting I'm wrong the second I find out. I paused for a minute because she's going to hit play after she crashes the fuck out about what I just said, and then she's going to listen to this and be like, damn, I did crash out when he said that. She's going to say shit like, I don't see him as my father. No, I never said that. You see me as your father's legacy, as something that you can't live up to. Everybody that she fucks with, she sees you as part of her father's legacy that she can't live up to, because she can't live up to you and what you represent either as yourself. She doesn't have a unique self. She has a performance that many people play on the internet. She's not a unique individual at all. She's an old, lonely, raggedy lady who lives in a house with no drywall and unfinished drywall and tore up carpets. Because notice she brought up the torn up carpets. She excused it with they were getting a little dirty, and you know how ambition is. You take it up and you just never get to it again. You got torn up carpets. There's no excuse for it. I couldn't disrespect SpongeBob like that, Trouble. She's excused how she had to cancel the auto payment for her heating oil. Then she complains about how cold it is. She's got to put something on the fire because she can't afford the heating oil. Remember, she has a live to set it. Can't snuggle up to her wife and get warm either because that's a whole bedroom away. Completely separate bed. And Scam Slam ain't in town enough to have all them affairs. So her wife's in a separate room. They say it's because they snore. But it's because the intimacy is gone. It's because if you look at her wife's post on Pinterest, which I have them all, you'll see the clear story of where she doesn't want to be there and she feels stuck. Fucking right, Trouble. How many times over the years have you seen me be like, got a bitch's Pinterest and pulled information off that? Like, come on. You gotta watch the Pinterest, people. You're a little too open on there. It's not always that easy, Carm. They've adopted a child that hates scammy clothes. So with the adoption of the child, it's a lot harder for her to just leave. But now when that child turns 18 in a couple short years, we're probably going to see real quick that Scam Slam has moved in to the house with no drywall. Or Scammy Claus has moved in to the house with money buried all over the yard because she can't explain to the government where it came from. The cool part is if the feds are watching, go dig up a yard. You'll find mason jars full of money. It's from the casinos that she scams through farming, player rewards cards. With her partner, Nick. With all the wigs. Grammy D, you in the whole wrong ass area. Don't know what you're doing here. But it's okay. You can listen to what Scammy Claus is really about. I just said it because everyone else says it and it's a popular thing to do. So as you're listening, Grammy D, we're going to start back off here with another page. We're going to put it on a nicer table because this is where we're going to get to Monsters video. Okay. A little nicer squiggles there from Helen Keller. It's fan behavior. Okay. So, what she did was context manipulation. We all know that. It's deliberate context manipulation. Specifically using temporal distortion. And it happens when Scammy Claus stitched together clips and comments from lives and videos that were on different dates. She hides the timestamps. She's not honest about when the dates were. She blacks out texts that would certainly require some explaining from people on her side of things, and that would contradict the narrative. And then she presents it all stitched together as if it occurred in a single continuous moment. It's not accidental editing. It requires multiple conscious choices. Hiding the dates is the biggest red flag. Dates are not cosmetic details. They determine meaning. A comment made the day the allegations were released was later framed as a response after those allegations became public. The comment in the live that she used of Monsters, where it says, "I'm here to support you," she took that from before that news was released and framed it as after, to make Monster look like she supported that behavior when she clearly does not. That single shift transforms someone being kind into an applied support of that behavior. Not being transparent about the dates enabled that. There's no legitimate reason to not be transparent about dates, because accuracy and that matters. She blacked out the middle of a comment Monster made on one of my videos that exposed misconduct by someone in her circle, because it contradicts the framing she is presenting. It's not editing for clarity. It's editing to hide things. It's a selective omission. And that's a core tactic in misinformation. If the goal was honesty, the full context would be shown or summarized fairly. If the goal were framing, inconvenient context must disappear. She said it wasn't her intention to present it that way. But intent does not exist in a vacuum. It is created through the process. To produce that video, she had to locate clips from different dates, put them together, cover up timestamps, black out contextual text, and present the content as one moment. That is a sequence of deliberate actions. When the outcome constantly benefits the same narrative and corrections are resisted, the intent becomes relevant, and the effect is what matters. After it was exposed, she gaslit. When she was confronted, instead of correcting it, instead of restoring dates and context, instead of issuing full clarification, she claimed lack of intent and reframed the harm as a misunderstanding. Posted a non-apology, called it an apology, and then reposted the video with the added text, "That is not Monster talking." Grammy D, you're not listening, are you? That's that willful ignorance that I'd be talking about. When you are clearly listening to what Scamming Claus does, and you're like, I'm going to be old and senile and just talk my shit. Well, be old and senile and talk your shit, old lady. If I can get your juice box and your applesauce, sit the fuck down and talk your shit. But listen. Someone get that. Can someone get Grammy D the applesauce? She's getting a little cranky. She's probably from the 1930s. So someone put a little cinnamon in it or something. I'm sure she likes that. And she's muted. Sit there, be quiet, and eat your applesauce, Grammy D. And listen. Look, I like applesauce too. Anyways, that gaslighting. It's something that Scamming Claus has just incorporated as part of her behavior and her character. She denies how somebody sees it, how everybody's seen it, the perception as which she presented it. Despite the verifiable evidence of distortion that Monster proved over and over and over in different ways each time, Monster literally pointed out like 30 fucking things about that video that was wrong. Okay. That's a lot of things that was made. She does it to avoid accountability and maintain narrative control. Because, gaslighting follows failed framing attempts all the time. Smashley said, oh, well, I corrected it. I said it wasn't her. I deserve credit. But Monster corrected it first before anybody. Monster seen that shit within 20 minutes, had that shit done, had all the screenshots, had everything ready to go, disproved. Nobody gets credit for something that should have never been done to begin with. It took over 12 hours from Smashley, quote, saying something about it, for Scamming Claus to take the video down, issue a non-apology, and add text that says, that's not Monster talking. Where's the blacked out text? Put that. Where's the dates? Put that. You're still framing it as something that is not true. So, that small little bullshit correction, you got 29 other things to correct on that video. Scam Slam publicly acknowledged the actual date that the news broke, she claimed, was the 15th. And then she said that Monster should have known earlier and disassociated. But the date that they covered up purposefully was the 12th, the day Monster found out. They said the 15th because they were worried about their circle of people who was still associating with him after the news broke. That alone ended the narrative. But they shifted it again. And it's important because it shows that their goal was never accuracy. It was preserving the smear campaign by any means necessary, by taking any available angle and presenting it to the public. Correct, Murrows. And that's where it crosses from misleading to reckless. You don't need to prove malicious intent to establish recklessness. Reckless conduct exists when someone knows or should know their presentation will mislead. They are shown corrections and continue anyways. Continuing to reframe after it's been corrected removes any claim of good faith. Why association deflection doesn't fix Scamming Claus's misconduct. She was attempting to redirect attention to someone who is friends with someone, who appears in boxes with someone, who someone associates with, who does not stand for that behavior, thinking that they could paint Monster out to be them to all of us, when all of us know better. They falsified timelines and edited context to try to paint Monster out to be someone she isn't and associate that person that she isn't with all of us because we were going so hard at her for her willful ignorance on T's husband's situation. To try to point at us and say, see, we support that behavior too. Instead of just coming to the realization that they've lost that argument because court paperwork is court paperwork, no matter what you say. They are trying to argue labels and it aligns with deflection, strategic ignorance, and projection. And it's all to preserve their narrative at any cost. It's about manufacturing implication while maintaining deniability. Notice there's a lot of plausible deniability with Scamming Claus in the strategic ignorance of I didn't know or I didn't mean it that way. There's a lot of that with her. But remember, when someone purposefully removes dates, get caught out putting together unrelated moments, hide huge blocks of contradictory text, and refuses to correct 100% of it after being exposed for it, they're not sharing information, they're engineering perception. Nobody needs to argue morality. Scamming Claus's editing choices speak for themselves. The way that she put Monster all over the video and then the voice behind it was intentional. Because in everybody's mind, looking at that video, all anybody thought was Monster. So, of course, people were going to sometimes maybe think that it was Monster talking. And what they were saying, they were defending the person. So then, with the narrative that was set with the video, that Monster was defending that person, they hear that person defending that person, and then it doesn't matter if it sounds like Monster or not. They leave the video thinking, oh shit, Monster defended that person. Now that person may not know Monster. So that issue, when someone pops up and says, well, ain't you the person that defended that person with those charges? That's the harm that was trying to be committed. And that's the harm that was put out there. Because it's long term. It's not just right now. It's a year from now. When people forget the voice that was on there, but remember the name. And take a box of Monster and then accuse her of defending something like that. When that has nothing to do with anything. But this person seen the video a year ago. That's the harm that got put out there, and that's the harm that they refuse to acknowledge. Taking the video down, putting up a video that's not even an apology, and then putting the video back up with text that says, this isn't monster talking. You didn't remove the edited off big black box of text that shows Texas Tiff's behavior knowingly. You didn't put the dates back. You didn't separate Monster's comment and the live. You put it all together as one continuous moment with the idea that the charges were out there on purpose to cause long-term harm, and you know you did it on purpose. And that's why y'all can straight go fuck yourselves. Because ain't nobody doing that to you over here. We're just telling the truth on your fucking... You're welcome, Monster. I feel like the long term wasn't discussed near enough. The fact that a year from now, you gonna be randomly sitting in a box on some other shit, and somebody gonna come talk shit to you about that video because they heard it a year ago, and well, they're gonna try to be assholes to you. It's happened to me a lot, Monster. Shit that like Dennis has said, Coach has said, will randomly come up, and I'm like, the fuck is this? I don't even know nothing about it. I forget about it, and it comes up, and it takes me off guard, a little bit. But then I remember pretty quickly that, oh yeah, somebody said that about that. So that's why I always say my reputation is built off of the lies that the people that have lost against me threw out there to try to salvage theirs. Fuck them. Yeah, exactly. That's something what Robert did. It'll be played with the video. And, time removes context, and it turns it into something that's continuously defended, and something in 6 months and be like, yeah, you defended this person, when that is not the case at all. Right, spread. Responsibility needs to be taken by everybody. Remember when I misspoke on Earl, and he brought it up to me, and I immediately apologized and said I would correct it again later, and I did correct it again later, and I'm even correcting it now by saying I misspoke. I'll no longer apologize to the domestic violence having firebug over there, but it is what it is. I corrected it publicly multiple times. Ain't nobody else correcting nothing. I don't have anything on Robert. I've always felt bad for Robert because of what Petty did to him. I believe everybody felt bad for him for what Petty did to him. It wasn't right what Petty did to him. Nobody deserves that. But maybe they deserve a bit of a dragon. My way. Maybe they should correct things that they misspeak on. Have you ever wondered what blatant lying looks like? Watch any scamming club. Right room. But Blatant lying is a pattern. It's a pattern of knowingly false information that's stated persistently, even after corrections or contradictions. Look out for these behavioral indicators. Repeating claims that are easily disproven, be it by timelines, by records, by paperwork, or by prior statements. Watch them assert absoluteness, meaning they use words like always, never, everyone knows for reaction. Or if they claimed the person that is harmed by it is reading too much into it, despite clear evidence. They insist that intent matters more than the outcome to invalidate the harm that they've caused. Their goal is not to clarify facts. It's to destabilize the other person's confidence. Confidence in what they know is true and factual, and to throw them into a defensive position. Lying and gaslighting are paired together, naturally. They're like brother and sister. A lie is told, then evidence is presented to disprove that lie, and instead of correcting it, the person denies the evidence. They minimize its importance. They attack the credibility, like brother and sister. Then repetition is the Jake from State Farm baby they had together. Because anyone can misspeak once, and anybody can misunderstand once. But when it's the same person, Scammy Claus, who lies about similar things repeatedly, who gaslights repeatedly with confidence, who uses the same phrases, pivots the same ways, and denies the same things each time. The behavior becomes systematic, not situational. With Monster's video, Scammy Claus said, "I didn't mean it that way." But that's gaslighting. It's claiming lack of intent, and that is a common gaslighting fallback. It shifts the conversation from, was it accurate, to, you shouldn't feel that way about it. The intent does not change. The altered timelines, the omitted context, and the false implications. The impacts exist, regardless of whatever she claims her intention was. And refusing to acknowledge that impact is a part of the gaslighting process. And she will escalate this behavior instead of resolving it. It's uncertain. The confusion it causes becomes a tool that she uses. And repeated lying and gaslighting does have effects on people. It erodes trust in factual information. It pressures others into not speaking up at all. It rewards manipulation over honesty. And it normalizes distortion as a debatable topic. Over time, it teaches the audience that truth is negotiable and memory is unreliable, which is deeply damaging in any community or any group of people. Lying distorts reality. When they're used together repeatedly, the behavior is not about misunderstanding or disagreement. It's about maintaining control by destabilizing the truth. You don't need to prove intent to recognize the pattern. The repetition, resistance to correction, and shifting the narrative. Information is shown and then dismissed or rewritten. That's not a discussion, it's gaslighting. Be open to honest, factual dialogue, but don't participate in narrative games, selective memory, or repeated misrepresentation. If accuracy and context aren't respected, where they know nothing. Why she blocks people and continues to talk about them. These are all valid points that have been brought up over the last week or so. So we've all noticed that she blocks us and then she continues to talk about us. She goes live and we're not invited to the boxes. I go live, she's invited, but she don't show up. Kind of weird. Instead of engaging in facts, Scammy Claus avoids direct dialogue. She refuses discussion in lives or shared spaces. And she blocks opposing voices, even out of her chat and her live. And then she speaks about those people publicly without any chance for the people to have a rebuttal in front of the same people she's speaking in front of. That's not a debate. That's not a conversation. It's unilateral messaging. Because they cannot argue facts. They substitute it with authority and threats. They do that to end scrutiny within their circle of people. Something that's super common is implying legal threats, threatening protection orders, warning people that conversations are being recorded, suggesting that there are consequences for speaking up. When they say that, it's not about legal resolution. Their function is deterrence. To make others afraid to speak and to make others afraid to respond. Or else they be threatened with legal action as well. Threatening legal action is not the same as pursuing truth. I'm going to say that again for when they listen to it. Threatening legal action is not the same as pursuing truth. Recording someone is not a rebuttal. And silence achieved through fear is not anything you can get validation off of. She blocks as a control mechanism. Blocking isn't inherently wrong. But when it's used in a systematic way, as she does, it becomes a tool of narrative control. It's another pattern. Anybody who criticizes her is blocked before they can respond, is shared without the risk of any correction at all, and then videos are posted. This creates a one-sided environment. One side speaks freely. The other side is silenced from that side. The audience hears only one version. And that's not transparency, that's curation. You're picking and choosing what you want your people to hear. That's why when you go to Scam Slam's YouTube, you'll see that things are cut from her YouTube. Stuff that, well, she doesn't want out there forever. Or want out there again. And this is why they refuse direct conversation. Because it introduces real-time fact-checking, immediate challenges, and you see their visible discomfort when their claims don't hold up. That's why when Scammy Claus was in MJ's box, she was so visibly just uncomfortable. A lot of people are uncomfortable when they're in the box with me because avoiding direct communication, it allows rehearsed talking points, selective framing, and emotional performance without interruption. Someone who is confident in their facts does not need to avoid direct discussion. Avoidance in itself is an answer. If you're not allowed to respond directly to somebody talking about you, that's an answer that they're lying, that they're trying to shift the narrative and spread something false about you or the situation. And misinformation thrives in indirect spaces. When you speak about someone instead of with someone, it enables misquoting, mischaracterization, a stitched together narrative, and altered timelines. Because the target can't respond in real time. False impressions harden before corrections are possible. And this is why indirect lives are paired. It's where legal language can be used as a weapon. Because legal language carries a procedure, recording, going legal. It shuts down conversation. It reframes disagreement as harassment. And it positions the speaker as the victim by default. It's a tactic that relies on fear and not merit. It's a tactic to silence, not tell the truth. The approach, it serves three goals. It avoids evidence-based challenges. It controls audience perception. And it punishes dissent socially. It allows someone to maintain a narrative without ever having to defend it. And it's just not good faith conflict resolution. That involves direct communication, a willingness to answer questions, openness to correction, and proportional responses. When people threat, block, and use indirect attacks, they are using avoidance behaviors, not resolution strategies. When someone refuses to argue facts, try to silence others through threats, blocks anyone with an opposing opinion, speaks publicly while spreading the information that they need to make themselves look better. Truth does not require intimidation, and facts do not need threats. Honest position. I'll say that again for you. Honest positions do not fear direct conversation. That is disgusting. It's why you always see me take a box. Even if I know all 8 other people are going to pile up on me, and I just sit there of behavior. It works. People see it. To silence me. If there were any facts to address, they can be discussed directly and transparently. If conversation requires fear, you should probably disengage. Because accuracy, context, and good faith communication should be a boundary. Personally, that's why you see me not get mad about it or respond. I see what you're doing, and it bothers the fuck out of you that it doesn't bother me. Notice how it's because I don't engage with or legitimatize false statements. I don't legitimatize recycled rumors either. I don't need to engage with third-party accusations that are presented without evidence, that allow other people to make unverified or knowingly false claims, especially serious ones, like 13 tries to do, and Skittles. People who repeat them or endorse them take it from disagreement and to defamation. I've never hidden facts, records, nothing. I've always been accountable for my actions, even if you didn't like what I just set up here and say I did it, because I ain't ashamed of it. If any claims that they had were true, there would be documentation that existed, and they would provide it. That is why they say, if he had any recorded phone calls, he'd have played it by now, because in their mind, if they actually had anything, they would break their thumbs hitting that TikTok button to get on here quick as fucking show it. Right, Polly? That's a good one. How can somebody cosplay as Santa and then be a pedophile sympathizer? It's like you're trying to draw kids in and lead them to them. The response: it's not transparency. It's narrative manipulation. We should all be open to discussion that is factual and that is in good faith. But we should all disengage from spaces where lies are permitted, where lies are amplified, and they're used as character attacks. And that's called defamation by amplification, combined with plausible deniability, of course, because scammers laws can't do a fucking thing without being able to be like, I'm the dumb old lady, I didn't know. And it works when someone allows or invites others to make extreme claims, like when Scammy Claus invited 13 to make those extreme claims that were disproven over and over and over. When they repeat those claims indirectly, when they refuse to correct those claims, knowing they're false, and they block and try to silence the person who's being targeted. The harm doesn't come from a single statement. It comes from the permission to be able to state it, the repetition, and refusal to correct it. They'd launder those false allegations through others and allow them to spread that as well. uncorrected. They outsource the lie to the people who follow them. Instead of making the claim directly to the person they're making the claim about, they will let guests say it. Notice how they invited 13. They'll let commenters run with it. Or they'll let their shitty, leaky co-host say it. They'll nod along with it. They'll react in an affirmative way. And they leave it unchallenged. Then they later claim, I didn't say that, someone else did. It still functions as endorsement. In any form of public communication, what you allow and what you amplify matters just as much as what you say. That is not something that I don't live by, because I do live by that. Because when She Extra was checked, and I already knew some stuff, and I said, well, you can't say that Scammy Cloud said that. And then Spilled went and checked and came up and said, nope, she didn't say that. That is exactly what that is. I did not allow that to remain unchecked and uncorrected, no matter how much I know she has let so much be unchecked and uncorrected about me and Monster and many others. I would rather keep my integrity instead of lowering it to where hers doesn't exist. And it's always serious allegations that are used. Right, Polly, she never would have, but that doesn't matter to me, because she's already shown that she never would. But I don't care. I have to live with me, and I'm not going to lie on her, because there's so much to tell the truth on her about. That honestly doesn't matter. Keep it factual, or don't say it around me. Because when people say shit, we do look into what each other say. It is encouraging. Why serious claims are used all the time? Because false or unverified claims that include violence, stalking, or sexual misconduct are especially damaging. They instantly taint reputation. They trigger emotional reactions. They discourage others from associating with the target. And shift the burden of proof unfairly. That's why Scam Slam runs around and says, he's a convicted stalker. You leaky bitch. Sit the fuck down. Look at my record. Not a single damn fucking stalking anything on there. But these claims are powerful because they are hard to disprove publicly without repeating them. Which is why responsible people avoid spreading them without evidence. But I still encourage people to go speak to the people who put those false allegations out there and make their own decision off them. Just allow me the grace to show receipts on my side. That's all. I'm not even going to show you receipts first. Go get their story. I don't want to taint whatever you might think. I want you to get it from them, and then you can get it from me, and you ain't even got to tell me what they said. That's how people confident in their innocence operate. I don't want to silence them, because one day something may actually be wrong with them. And if something is actually wrong with them, or something does actually happen to them, I don't want them to go and be ignored based off of whatever poor decision they thought they would have by falsely accusing me of shit. But fuck them. Go talk to them. If you have any question about it, go talk to them. but then let me know and I'll show you my receipts. They block so much to enable their indirect speaking. Know the truth about the situation. They continue to discuss them and the topic publicly. Where one side speaks freely and the other side cannot respond in real time. The audience only hears one version. It's not neutral moderation. It's curated misinformation. It makes correction harder before you can even have the chance to defend yourself. And I don't know, or that wasn't my intent, doesn't resolve anything. Once false statements are known, pointed out, or corrected, continuing to allow or repeat them becomes reckless, regardless of claimed good faith behavior would require stopping the spread, correcting it, and clearly correcting your chat when they try to spread it too. And when you fail to do that, you become tolerant to the misinformation. Then they gaslight you on top of the defamation. After the false allegations circulate, they start gaslighting. They minimize, they reframe the exposure as an obsession that you have. Or your obsession becomes you harassing them. You saying, correct your bullshit is now harassment to them. And they insist that, tone and intent matter more than the accuracy of the information. It shifts the attention away from the false statement and onto the reaction of the person, which further protects the narrative. And that's also a pattern. It's effective because, it avoids direct accountability. It's a damn long book, and it maintains audience sympathy. It discourages pushback from the audience through fear or through fatigue. I don't get fatigued. I'm the most persistent fucker ever. And it attempts to keep. That's why you'll never find me in the defensive position. My ass will read the longest Helen Keller book known to fucking man before you'll ever see me in the defensive position. Just to make sure that Scammy Claus has something to play tomorrow and spit at her fucking phone. Choose every sentence and be like, no, fuck him. And that's when you can tell that she's triggered as fuck by what she's fucking hearing. That approach replaces evidence-based discussion with character assassination attempts. It's not drama or just opinions. Opinions are protected. False statements presented as facts are not. When someone permits known lies to be spread, refuses to correct them, and weaponizes serious allegations, it's no longer a disagreement. It's misrepresentation with foreseeable harm. When they allow others to spread false allegations, repeating them indirectly and blocking correction, it's not being neutral. It's amplification without accountability. The truth does not require silence from the accused. And accuracy does not. Serious claims demand evidence. or they should not be shared at all. She does live on TikTok. A lot of them do. A lot of them can't even make their own original content, like content video, in her whole time on TikTok. It's always clips from somebody else's live, or she's doing dishes, or she's cooking food, or it's a picture of a plate of food. That's it. Where literally everybody else has made some sort of original content. Or bad floors, yeah. I said that argument to Mallory way back in the day. I was like, you don't even make original content. And I quickly realized, neither did I. So I had to change that real quick. So I wrote a song dissing her PCOS. And that right there should have probably told everybody just how fucked up I am a little bit. Like the way I think. Because I'll tell you what, nothing's normal. From directly dissing somebody's PCOS through song to accusing Dora of stealing a fetus today and everything in between. It has been kind of funny, actually, because it all kind of works together. But all of those patterns describe Scammy Claus as who she is, and Scam Slam, and the people that sit around her like Guardians of Valor. You can add a few patterns here or there, take away a couple. You see the kind of people they are. Their image before morality. The values that are presented loudly, they're applied, not so loudly, secondary. It's very selective with what they actually use their morals with, and it's only for them, not for everybody. What matters to them most is appearing morally correct, not being consistently accurate. They have an oppositional identity, meaning their positions are chosen less by principle and more by who is on the other side. That conflict gives their identity a shape. One-sided engagement. They'll talk about people, not with them. They avoid direct conversation because it would disrupt their script. Anybody avoiding direct conversation, you have to see they're hiding something. Notice when Meg started first running her mouth, she took a box with her. Her shit fell apart. She ain't never took a box with me since. But she'll talk about me. But she won't take a box with me. Scammy Claus, Scam Slam, 13, they all talk about me, won't take a box with me. Scam Slam and 13, I'm good on them because they got those little pieces of paper they wave around and get paper cuts with. I won't directly engage with them because of that. That's their own fault. Oh, flying without wings, I did. So, I did in a way that I'll explain that. There's an episode of South Park where, well, Cartman is selling fetuses. And the whole true crime case, apparently the fetus was missing out of the person. Well, Dora went over there all performative and fake. And in my mind, it just made sense to make a fucking news video that said that Dora was over there to steal the fetus and to put her face on Cartman selling the fetus on the phone. And to end it with, she doesn't care about the situation at all. She just cares about the money that she can get from it, which is disgusting. But I'm sure Dora's not the only one. Just about the money. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that most of the people actually don't give a fuck about the victim or the child. They give a fuck about the money and the exposure that they're getting off of it. They see people with 2,000 people in their lives, and they're like, yeah, we made it. For how long? They're going to have to keep doing worse and worse shit to get that attention. They're going to, after the hype dies down of that, well, they'll be back down to 34 viewers. And then all of a sudden, they'll feel like a failure, and they'll have to fucking go out on a limb and do a bunch of fuck shit and become evil as fuck. Just like Scam Slam did. Yeah. It's not like actually accusing her of stealing the fetus. It's just... In the episode of South Park, he was selling the fetus for money. Dora's in it for the money. It made sense. She is kind of shaped like Cartman too, so it made sense in that way. I'm going to continue. They depend on plausible deniability. Scammy Claus relies on I don't know. I didn't know. That wasn't my intent. Or someone else said it. I have to take accountability for otherwise. She has a high tolerance for distortion. Her editing, her omissions, her stitched together timelines, and rumors are all acceptable tools as long as her narrative survives. She's not a chaotic person. It's patterned behavior. People become that way because control feels safer than accountability. Direct accountability requires that you admit you're wrong. That will make her think she's losing status. And she's going to be rejected in her mind. And narrative control avoids that whole sequence of events in her mind. She's got it wrong. Admitting you're wrong does not make you lose status. It does not make people reject you. It shows people that you are actually human, and no human is right 100% of the time. When I say I accused her of stealing a fetus, I'm paraphrasing it. Like, I'm not phrasing it in a good event consequences. And she's used those tools habitually. Attention has replaced validation. Scammy Claus sees attention as relevance, and relevance as safety. Then she takes safety and sees it as power. Through all the outrage, the accusations, and moral drama, she's learned that it generates far more engagement than correction or nuance. Over time, the attention becomes emotionally regulating. Something the person needs, not just wants. Her identity is anchored to being right. Her sense of self-worth is built around being, quote, the truth teller, the moral authority, someone who protects her people. So evidence isn't evaluated, it's managed. Her fear of exposure outweighs her fear of lying. We can tell by when she washed her hair and brushed it and put a camera out in her stage living area. That was her fear of exposure showing. At a certain point, what if I lose control of that story? That's when correction feels dangerous to her. Facts feel threatening to her. Receipts feel like weapons to her. And direct conversation feels intolerable. Each of her major behavior issues, they serve a purpose. The false and recycled allegations, she feels isolates and weakens opponents. She uses gaslighting to destabilize her, to avoid responsibility while continuing all of those behaviors. They're all defensive behaviors, not truth-seeking ones. And they protect status, not facts. What she's actually looking for, not consciously, but behaviorally. She's seeking narrative dominance. She wants to be the person whose version sticks, regardless of accuracy. She wants social influence without having to submit to the same standards she's applied to other people. She needs emotional insulation, as well as there's off balance. She avoids sitting with any type of shame, taking any type of accountability, and losing credibility. She prefers loyalty over integrity. People who stay quiet, people who question, are punished or erased. And the truth does not apply to these type of people. Their system. That's why any evidence is ignored or reframed. That's why timelines are distorted. That's why people who deliver the messages are attacked. And that's why corrections are treated as hostility. It's not because the truth is unclear, but because the truth removes control. There's one critical distinction, and it matters. And it's that she understands how the audience responds, and she chooses methods that preserve her perceived dominance. You don't need to prove malicious intent to recognize all of that. She is someone who is driven less by belief and more by control of perception. They're not seeking resolution. They're not seeking dialogue. They're not seeking accuracy. They're seeking authority without accountability. And they will sacrifice truth, context, and people to maintain it. And when you recognize that, it feels like a direct attack to them. When really it's just clarity. and why you shouldn't care. You shouldn't care because your emotional response is the fuel that makes her tactics work. Nothing about her relies on facts. Facts doesn't mean she wins or loses. She relies on provoking you, defensive or obsessed. Then she can shift the focus away from her conduct and control the narrative by controlling the emotional temperature of the situation. Once you react emotionally, it's no longer about truth. It's about how you reacted. She's not trying to resolve anything, or correct misunderstandings, or debate facts. She's trying to create a reaction loop. She provokes you. However, with false allegations, with misinformation, with edited clips, extreme claims, she gets her reaction. You either get angry, you feel a sense of urgency, you feel like you need to repeatedly explain yourself, you get emotionally defensive. Then she reframes it. See how they react. This is why I'm concerned. This is harassment. And then she grabs authority. She presents herself as calm, threatened, or justified, regardless of what actually happened. Your reaction becomes the evidence she didn't have. And she needs your emotions specifically. All of you. Any of you. Me, Monster, anybody in the chat. If she gets mine, well, that's like the biggest win of her life. If she gets Monsters, well, that's also another biggest win of her life. If she gets someone who's not like actively speaking against her, but they're in my chat, associates with that person there, they're in his chat all the time, and then they loop it from there. We'll just say me. Transparency, I might be known for. None of that helps her. But my emotional response would help her. If she can get me upset, get me to overreact when I respond, or get me to chase every single lie that she tells, then she doesn't need to prove anything. My reaction becomes her. She cannot operate without engagement. She needs people responding. She needs to control when and how. And she needs the audience watching so she can explain how she does it. When you don't emotionally engage, her lies fall flat. Her narrative loses momentum. The attention from her audience, it drops. And her control collapses. Consistency is more destabilizing to Scammy Claus than confrontation, because she avoids confrontation.